Monday of the first week of Advent.
A reading from the book of the prophet Isaiah. This is what Isaiah, son of Amos, saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. In days to come, the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established as the highest mountain and raised above the hills. All nations shall stream toward it. Many peoples shall come and say, Come, let us climb the Lord's mountain to the house of the God of Jacob, that he may instruct us in his ways, and we may walk in his paths. For from Zion shall go forth instruction, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. He shall judge between the nations, and impose terms on many peoples. They shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. One nation shall not raise the sword against another, nor shall they train for war again. O house of Jacob, come, let us walk in the light of the Lord. The word of the Lord.
The psalm response: Let us go rejoicing to the house of the Lord. I rejoiced because they said to me, We will go up to the house of the Lord. And now we have set foot within your gates, O Jerusalem. Let us go rejoicing to the house of the Lord. Jerusalem, built as a city with compact unity. To it the tribes go up, the tribes of the Lord. Let us go rejoicing to the house of the Lord. According to the decree for Israel, to give thanks to the name of the Lord. In it are set up judgment seats, seats for the house of David. Let us go rejoicing to the house of the Lord. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May those who love you prosper. May peace be within your walls, prosperity in your buildings. Let us go rejoicing to the house of the Lord. Because of my relatives and friends, I will say, Peace be within you. Because of the house of the Lord, our God, I will pray for your good. Let us go rejoicing to the house of the Lord.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. When Jesus entered Capernaum, a centurion approached him and appealed to him, saying, Lord, my servant is lying at home paralyzed, suffering dreadfully. He said to him, I will come and cure him. The centurion said in reply, Lord, I am not worthy to have you enter under my roof. Only say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I too am a man subject to authority, with soldiers subject to me. And I say to one, Go, and he goes, and to another, Come here, and he comes. And to my slave, Do this, and he does it. When Jesus heard this, he was amazed, and said to those following him, Amen, I say to you, in no one in Israel have I found such faith. I say to you, many will come from the east and the west, and will recline with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob at the banquet in the kingdom of heaven. The Gospel of the Lord.
The first reading comes from Isaiah 2, 1-5. This is a hymn about the mountain of the Lord. They're referring to Mount Zion, and this was obviously written at a time when Jerusalem was considered the place where the salvation of the Lord would be manifested. In the early days of the history of Israel, Jerusalem was not all that important. It was the capital city, it was where the temple was. But by the time of Isaiah, around 720 BC, it had become the very focal point for salvation. That's why the people would climb this mountain to receive instruction. If the people know what is right, they will certainly do it. And the instruction will transform this world. Not simply will they know what's right, but also it will cause a change in the entire universe. That from this time on, there would be no more warfare. It would bring shalom. Remember, shalom means peace in Hebrew, but it's not a peace of the absence of war, but rather a peace so profound that it transforms the universe. Now, what's interesting is that this hymn is also found in Micah, who is a contemporary of Isaiah. So either one prophet wrote it and the other one borrowed it, or a third party wrote it and they both borrowed it. This was very common in biblical literature, that if a hymn were good, the various authors would often incorporate it into their works, much as we see with the hymns of the suffering servant in 2nd Isaiah. The Gospel is from Matthew 8, 5 to 11. This is a story of a centurion who approaches Jesus and asks him to heal his servant. Now, a centurion is a pagan, but this man obviously had some connection with the Jewish people. He was probably a God-fearer. God-fearer is a person who's fascinated by Jewish ways but doesn't go all the way and convert. When Jesus says he'll come to his house, what does the centurion say? Don't even bother. I'm a man of authority. I understand how it works. Just say the word and he'll be healed. And Jesus marvels at the faith of this man, who is not a Jew, who nevertheless has a faith stronger than many of the Jewish people who rejected Jesus. In fact, Jesus says, many will come from the east and west to recline with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob at the banquet in the kingdom of the heaven. Notice, even though this is the Gospel of Matthew, which is a very Jewish gospel, we hear that pagans would be invited into the kingdom. What does this mean for us today? It means that as we celebrate the birth of Jesus in Bethlehem, we have to remember that he was born for all people, and all people are invited to participate in the salvation he's offering. Now, not all people will be able to respond in the same way. They haven't all been given the same gift of faith, but they're all invited to share in the peace that he offers, that shalom that we heard about in the first reading. And may God bless us.